Welcome. So this is a beautiful moment for the show. Bambos, he is gainfully employed, so he couldn't make it today, and that was why he couldn't come.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so he got a job. He should have been here, and it got extended, and some things happened, so he couldn't make it. And then what I always love to do is sort of flip seats. So I asked Rani if she would join. So Rani's with us today. And then something very funny happened on the way to the Coliseum. Tasha Stevens, who our guest is today, has not shown up. So now it's the two of us.
You know how much pressure it gives me? Okay, I have 3 things to list.
Okay, so hold on, baby, hold on. Before we go there, today's show is surviving and making for a healthy relationship. Today on Wonderful Chaos. Oh, wow, baby, here we are.
Okay, so can you?
All right, so if you can't hear us, please let us know. We're testing, trying to get everything right. My apologies as we're sorting this out.
Okay, so as I said,
yes, babe.
Huge pressure.
Yeah, how is that for you?
Because hang on.
Okay.
So huge pressure because of 3 reasons.
Okay.
1, I'm sitting here with the #1 best-selling author.
How does that feel?
In the Netherlands.
Yes.
For all categories, English book and English book in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
So there was already a major pressure.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's why I have to wear red. So at least, I don't disappear in your presence. Second, Bambos is not here. And, there's, there are many fans for Bambos in this show. So,
true.
Not sure if they...
how they're going to deal with the fact that he's not here.
He's not here. And then Tasha.
And then the guest. So I invite you to join, and then the guest doesn't show up. On the show, babe, we talk a lot about Bambos and I talk a lot about our relationship. And Bambos likes to discuss how different we are.
Oh, you and me.
Yeah. And you often say that you don't find us all that different. So what is it that you say, where is it you think that we're similar, and then where would we be different?
I think maybe the question is not even relevant, whether you're the same or different from me. It's if you're the same, so what? If you're different, so what?
So what makes that we stay together for 15 years now?
Because we like each other.
Yeah. Because we like each other. I like that.
Yeah.
Because we like each other.
Yes.
Well, if you had to say to people that are having a hard time in their relationship, what would you say makes it that our relationship progressively, at least for me, gets better?
On a superficial level, I think we have we have a compatible sense of humor, and for me that's very important because I like to be happy and laugh and share that laughter with you or with whomever I am. So that's an important thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I get distracted because my eyes touch. Something's happening with my eyes.
Oh, is that right?
But, yeah, and I don't know. To be honest, I don't evaluate or analyze our relationship that much.
Well, how did it feel the first years of our relationship? Because the first years of our relationship, I really wanted you to be different.
Yeah, I can remember that.
Yeah. And I said, you're not going to the trainings that Case and I are giving on Sundays. And you're like, Andy, I got better things to do. And I was very frustrated with you. So how was it to be with someone for those first few years that wasn't just loving you for who you were?
Well, there was a feeling of, the jerk reaction was that, I never made you come to all my stuff. So why don't you just leave me alone as I leave you alone?
Yeah.
And secondly, it was a bit sad, obviously. It's sad that I felt sometimes, so apparently I was not enough for Andy. But yeah, and I never made a secret. Sometimes I say, I think I love Andy much more than he loves me. But that's not a problem. I enjoy loving him. So
yeah, and you said that because I wasn't accepting you for who you were, I guess. Or was there something? Was there more?
I just think that I love you more than you love me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say that, and I mean, yes, we all create our own reality, but I would say I'd like to reframe it and see if it would be different.
Why? It's a great, it's not an issue that I love you more.
No.
Are you going to make this competition again?
No. I don't. I didn't think of it that way. I was thinking about it a little bit different. I was thinking of it more like I feel like in some ways you're more, I would say, dependent on me than I'd be dependent on you. Would that be fair to say or not?
Yeah.
Like if you're unhappy, I don't see that makes me unhappy. But if I'm unhappy, I see that has more of an impact on you.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe there's somebody who's trying to communicate with us that's on Wonderful Chaos. That's probably Bolalang who's saying, welcome to you. I'm not exactly sure. It could be Bambos who's watching from afar, but we only see them as they're posting it as Wonderful Chaos at the moment.
It must be someone that
has administrative rights.
Yes, you're right. No, just the fact that my name is spelled correctly because according to Siri, my name is spelled as RONNI.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm an American Rani according to Siri, but I'm an Indian Rani.
How about we don't fight all that much? I'd say. I mean,
in your experience, we don't fight that much.
Really?
No.
No, but when was the last fight we had? Tell me when the last fight was.
What is a fight? I mean, I grew up in a household where one does not raise one's voice. So when your voice or when your voice goes to a certain decibel, that would categorize as an,
That's cultural, I'm guessing then.
Yeah.
Could you say how many times we've actually fought in our relationship? Because I feel like
I don't know.
I mean, I only remember one fight, but that could be because I have more comfort with discomfort than you do. Like one real fight.
I guess I wouldn't call it a fight. It was more like bickering sometimes.
Yeah. Bolalang. I'd love to get some questions from Bolalang. I'd love to have Bolalang interviewing us off of the show. That would be fascinating.
I would be more interested in asking Bolalang a question. Yeah. But I guess that session has passed because we had Bolalang in the show before.
Well, we can always have him back on, but.
So Andy, before we continue,
yeah,
since our guest is not here,
Tasha,
what are we going to do in the next hour?
This is what I do every day, baby. I look in the camera and I say, what does it feel like it would be nice to talk about today? And then I let that guide me. So if we follow that reasoning, what would be nice to talk about today?
What would be nice to talk about? This is Friday afternoon. What time is it? It's 5.
Yeah.
It's close to dinner time. You know what I do when it's close to dinner time, Andy?
What's that?
I like to fantasize about what I'm going to eat tonight.
Yes. We can say you're very Asian in that regard,
It's connected to the topic today. We were going to talk about foraging.
We're going to talk about foraging. Yes, we were.
And food doesn't always mean it's a cooked food. Right?
True. But I'd love to go back to talking about relationships, because I guarantee you, babe, there are people out there that haven't quite figured out what's the recipe for it to work in a relationship. And I can speak, right? Because I do every single day on this show. And I think you being here is really cool, because you can say, hey, this is what I think it boils down to. Or I can say it and you can agree or disagree. But I'd love for you to sort of say, this is what I think the heart of a real good relationship is.
Yeah, what I'm curious is the perception that we are so different. What is so different about us?
Well, okay. Like, I love to dream. I love
Me too.
Okay, let's discuss before you start. So I love to, like, if I'm thinking about a subject, I don't like to think about the details of that subject. I don't want to think about what is the downside risk. What are the things that might get in the way of it happening? Like, for me, I'm in this, like, often in a state of, where can this go if I allow my brain to fully explore it? And the one thing I found, it happens with me over and over again when we interact, is that without even letting you know I had the expectation, I then start to talk, and then you're like, yeah, but this isn't going to work, or that is going to, and then when I like, then you'll say often, so what do you want me just to listen? So you don't want my feedback?
Oh, interesting.
And that's, and that for me is two different ways of functioning.
Yeah.
So there's the big picture thinking kind of more predominant, and then there's the more detail oriented predominant. And I see that in that way we are very different.
Yeah, and the context is also important, Andy, because in my world,
Okay.
my work world, I'm someone that is often seen like you. So
what is that? What do you mean by seen like me? What does that mean?
Someone who dreams.
Oh, you're seen as the dreamer.
Upside. Yeah, so it is very contextual. So it's a spectrum. So you happen to be here, and I'm here in your worlds, but in other worlds, it's actually I'm there. I'm you in other worlds.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine that.
Yeah.
As it would be the same if I was in your world. But I would say
you'll be like double.
But I'm saying when we interact around a subject, and I'm dreaming around it, like where we might retire.
Yeah.
And just starting like trying to think about those ideas. Oftentimes, before we get too far into it, then you'll start telling me all the potential
possibilities, the constraints.
The constraints.
Yeah.
And that I see when people might observe us from the outside. I have nothing to do sort of with finance per se, and that's a very numbers and detail oriented thing. And of course, more people associate me with being really in feelings. Sharing my feelings and talking about, which you also are, but not necessarily in the public, not necessarily openly.
Yeah. Then I see that we're different, because in my world, in finance, we are trained to think using our rational mind, because making big decisions, finance are big decisions. You buy a house, you make investments, you save for your children's education, you plan for your retirement, you plan for your future.
Yeah.
It has to be made with cool head, when you are not swayed by feelings that can go up and down depending on what news you read that day. So we are trained to actually even mitigate those biases, behavioral biases that we do when we make decisions. So and the same token, you observe also these behavioral biases that others are making, and that could create ways for you to benefit from.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, you're answering very clinically right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the Rani behind I'm on a camera where people might see me from work, and God forbid they might see me say things in a way that doesn't look clean and polished. Is that?
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Is it not?
No, because deep down, I believe that certain decision has to be made not with feelings, because we know how flawed we are in terms of our brain functions. People make wrong decisions all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I genuinely believe that, feelings are important to balance our life, to enrich our lives. But there are places for feelings, and there are also places where feelings are just accessory. It's actually distractions.
Yeah. So in the finance world,
Yes.
but I mean, to some degree, you've gotten great joy from understanding how biases, of course, impact financial decisions.
Yes.
If there's anything I've seen you get pleasure from in your finances, actually understand how psychology connects to.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah, that's your joy.
Yes, how people make, in suboptimal decisions because of their feelings, because of our tendency to weigh pain and grief and loss much more than how we weigh.
Okay. I'm going to go back to relationships.
Okay, I can see that.
And there's a reason why I'm going to go back to relationships, and I'm going to be more firm now.
Okay.
Is because we got a show, and I know there's people out there who haven't figured out how to make it work.
Make what work?
A relationship.
So how do you make it work?
Yeah. Well, I know that before we met, I've dated quite a bit, and I really had a hard time thinking that, there's this one thing that this person isn't really capable of or isn't doing, and I really focused a lot on what was absent in the people I was dating. And I had this really big vision, and it was really kind of, I felt connected to religion a little bit, was that if I'm going to date this person, I have to really be prepared to marry them. It was almost like this 0 to 100. So I almost didn't have the chance to get to know anybody if I didn't feel like, hey, do I think I can meet this person? It's really a weird.
Yeah, you've got.
But I've seen that in others that also are raised in this Catholic guilt thing, is that there's a lot of this, you have to really, before you date somebody, this isn't a game, and you don't want to play with feelings, and this person might like you. And in a way, when you're wanting to take care of another person, it creates a really sick dynamic. What I saw.
Almost sounds like a liability, a burden.
Exactly. Every relationship I had was a burden, because I thought it was really arrogant, actually, that I and my job was to take care of the other, even if we were just dating.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I still see
what
it.
What is interesting?
What is?
Because I'm looking at myself, and I never had the idea that in a relationship or even being married is going to be a burden. If anything, it should enhance my life.
Yeah.
And then, I was married before, so you're my second husband. In my first marriage, I was actually really surprised how much of a burden it was. I thought it's supposed to be fun. It was to be, even burden of life will be shared.
Yeah.
Instead, I felt that it was actually compounding.
Yeah.
So I was very disappointed with the concept of marriage.
Disenchanted.
Like, what if this is what marriage is? Why would anyone want to get married?
Yeah. And what just help me understand, what was the expectation you had before, and then what happened afterwards? You said it would be happier and it would be nicer.
Yeah. So even like the concept of taking care of, I expect that I would be taken care of, not necessarily financially, but also just emotionally. That I would be with, that we become an item. So some things will be shared, but. At that time, suddenly I felt I had a job, so I had a career that I would like to pursue, but then I have to be home. I have to take care of this household. I have to think about, maybe because I was married to a bit more of a traditional man.
Okay.
So it was, Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, what I gathered from the marriages, there was also pressure from your culture to get married sooner than you might have wanted to.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, we got married because just to silence all this people who said, "Hey, you've been dating for years. What's the intention?"
Yeah. So what was different between that marriage and our marriage?
In this marriage, well, first of all, we had a long relationship, and I did not think about marriage because I was happy the way we were, and I did not see how marriage would add. If anything, I saw all the liabilities. Now, administratively, it becomes more cumbersome, and but that's not entirely true because I also saw it's much easier to call you my husband in some culture rather than saying that this is someone I love and someone who loves me, which is basically a lover.
Yeah. But you still call me your lover.
I do, because I love you and you love me. You're my lover.
Oh, nice. Okay. I thought it was just some sexual thing.
I think that's a topic for a different
person on the show.
Oh, I think you already have that session.
Yes, we did.
What is love and what is sex?
Yeah, true. Love and lust.
Yeah, love and lust.
Bolalong does agree that I do tell my children not to date for marriage, but exploring possibilities. Yes. Wow. I think that's nice, Bolalong. I don't know. I think for both of us, because you also had religion in your life that was quite strong. You left the Indonesia, but the religion was certainly in the background.
Yeah, especially because in Indonesia, religion is part of the culture as well. So it is not a secular society. So, yeah.
So, but the point being that, at least for me, I had an understanding of relationship that was very much tied to guilt. That's the way I saw a lot of my early relationships. Is that if I wasn't already planning to marry, then I judge myself. And I think if I'm going to be together with this woman we're together 3 months, but if we're going to be together another 3 months, I really need to make sure that I would want to marry this person. Like that kind of feeling came up a lot for me when I was early on.
Yeah.
Which I think really wasn't very good for any relationship I was in, because if you put that pressure on it, things don't evolve.
Yeah, and ironically, I would even say that now in our relationship, you're quite lucky because I'm the easiest person to take care of.
Yeah.
Like I don't even need taking care of.
No, you'll eat ramen every night.
If anything, I take care of you, Andy.
Yes, for sure. We have a nice question from Christina Hurst-Prager, who is also connected to Peter Koenig, who does the money work. And I think this is an incredibly great segue, because if there is one thing we did have a challenge with when we started our relationship, is with our relationships with money.
Yeah.
Do you remember those days when we didn't have shared values around money?
To be entirely honest with you, I don't remember what the issue was with you in terms of money, but I did go to the seminar with Peter Koenig, and it was really an eye-opener to me.
Yeah.
The way it was given, the context resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
And also the understanding of it. And
well, let me dig into it then. I remember, and I still see it sometimes today, is that I look at my relationship with money as often, I don't need a direct relationship to what the benefit will bring me, and I'm okay spending it. And what I've noticed when we'll discuss it, you'll often say, hey, if there's not a direct return on an investment, then why would you spend any money?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is very true. And that's something that I actually learned along the way. Because to me, there's in terms of money, there's a concept of investing it, which means that you use it for productive use. So it turns into something better, hopefully something more or something good. And consuming and consumption. Consumption is just using money for temporary pleasure.
So I am far more comfortable with consumption than you are.
Yes, correct. So consumption doesn't make me happy.
But it's weird is that it also, I would say, makes you happy, but the consumption is different than what I would consider consumption. I mean, of course, if we're talking about shoes or having a nice dinner or seeing theater, like then,
or how much this hair cost?
then consumption is fine. But if we say, hey, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to need an editor and I'm going to need this and I'm going to need that.
Oh, that's what you mean.
And then you'll look and say, hey, you're spending a lot of money. What's the return on that investment?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll say the return on the investment is when I die. Like I've lived the life I want to live.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say that the investment is after you die. Why would you invest?
No. The investment is, I think, what the interesting thing that people, they'll know because maybe they're reading was that, at some point I was in the family, all the money was invested in Madoff, this Ponzi scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, you also looked at the Ponzi scheme and you knew that something was wrong. Mm. Like you just knew it.
Yeah.
Like you're like,
just
Andy,
mathematically, it's impossible.
This is statistically impossible. So I don't know how this is working, but it's suspicious. Yeah. And then at some point I agreed with you and said, you know what, all the family's in it. I'll take all the money out. And thank God I asked to take all the money out, but before it came out, it collapsed.
Okay. Yes.
And I remember that night, like I slept like a baby. And you were more frustrated about that than I was.
Yeah.
And I remember you being fascinated with what was it? What made it that, it was a few $100,000, I think. I don't remember. You probably even know the numbers better than I do. But you were like, you know what, Andy? This is horrible. This is horrible. And I was laughing. I said, babe, it was a number on a piece of paper.
Yeah. It was never there.
It was never there. In fact, what I saw was that I lived in gratitude because although I never spent that money because it was invested for me, it allowed me to feel safety enough to take all the risks I took in life.
Yes, yes.
And if that money hadn't been there, I would have actually said, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So in some weird, contorted way, the psychological knowing that was there was all the value I needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember saying that to you, and it was like, it was as if you were more constricted around that loss than I was.
Yeah. There was, you grew up in this space knowing that there is some safety net. And if you know my upbringing, I didn't come from a wealthy family. So pretty much after, I don't know, maybe even 15 years old, I kind of somehow managed to get my own money through a scholarship and everything. So my mother even now often feel very guilty because she felt that she never spent any money for me.
Yeah.
Because I somehow managed that myself. So I often feel that money is always money that I know that I have. Those are really my own hard work with my own tears and blood and sweat. It's all mine. So, and that wasn't a big amount of money. And I imagine it that, how many years would I have to work to get that much money? So when it's gone, I didn't think of it as it's money that you were given that was there for you. I thought of it as money that you worked very hard for.
Yeah. But I mean, even if I worked hard for it and disappeared, I still wouldn't have a problem with it in general. I mean, that it goes back to the relationship. It's when I see a number on a piece of paper, it's a number on a piece of paper, and I just see psychologically it has an impact on me.
Yeah, that was something that I actually also through this seminar with Peter Koenig that I learned that, it's an imaginary thing.
Yeah.
In effect, doesn't mean that it's not good or fun or anything, because sometimes I often think of it also as when you play games, you get high score.
Yeah.
It's fun to get high score. You get motivated. You get more games, and sometimes you're beaten and you lost your scores. That really sucks, but doesn't mean that you cannot go again. So that was actually the liberating effect of that. That process. Yeah, actually less attached to it as something where my life depends on.
Yeah.
But more of But then again, it probably also have something to do with the phase of life.
True.
Who said it? That yeah, money is not everything as long as you have enough of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Money's not everything as long as you have enough of it.
Yeah.
You know, interesting is another thing. I've had most people. I have had a lot of people talk about having trouble during COVID times, especially in relationships. And I've felt like I've enjoyed COVID time because we've got to spend more time,
Yeah.
and I found that to be nice.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think we may. I think you. Let me put it that way. I don't. I think you underestimate how many other people don't have the luxury of wanting to have that much time with a partner.
What I can imagine,
Yeah.
it can be a struggle, especially for a family with young children. So it's not necessarily just with the partner.
Yeah.
They have to also deal with screaming kids
Yeah.
running around and trying to, entertain them, keep them busy while you have to do your job. And
Yep.
so, but
I would agree.
I imagine if people were in our situation, just the two of us,
Just the two of us.
they probably are happy because they get to spend more time with each other. I
Yeah.
know some colleagues of mine who has young children, so still a baby, a baby. They are very happy because now they get to spend time together as a family with their
Yeah.
partner, with the baby. I think it
But
also,
I'm working with hand-in-hand parenting a lot, and I'll do conference calls with them, and they're the people that are going to them, buying their services, registering, has had a massive growth, like double.
Yes.
It's COVID double. So
Yeah.
parents
Yeah.
have been having massive challenges
Yes.
on how to deal with the management of their own lives while having kids and having
Yes.
schooling in the house with computers that don't work
Yeah.
and all the things that come with it. So in that way, we really have a different experience of COVID because we don't have that.
Yeah.
So
yes.
that I and I'm sure that's its own show because we can't even talk to that.
Yeah. Well, I may say that my sister, she also had to manage her career and her household and the children as well in the past few months.
Okay.
Now the kids are back to school. She is actually she starts feeling lonely. Like, where's all the the whole activity? And my brother, who has 3 children, is actually very happy with this COVID situation because, he get to spend more time together with the children, and it's a bit different for him because he's been spending some years actually homeschooling his kids.
Yeah.
So he's already
used to it.
He's already used to it. Yeah.
You're together with me for 15 years, right? Is that about right?
2006.
What do you dislike about me most? What's the quality in me you say that frustrates or irritates me? What is it? What is the thing you say, oh, God?
Yeah, that somehow the existence of laundry baskets doesn't apply to you.
Laundry basket?
So as in, you put your clothes on the floor.
Yes, it's staging. I call them staging areas, baby.
Yes, and you gave me an explanation once. You said, if I put it on the floor here, that means it's clean. If I put it on the floor there, that means that's dirty.
Yes.
Okay, fine. At least
no. But maybe dirty, but it can be worn again. Maybe.
Yes. Yeah, except that this location keeps changing.
Yes. I'm sort of like trying to place things in strategic locations, and they evolve over time.
Yeah.
So that's your big complaint, laundry. How about my personality? What about my personality irritates you?
Irritates me.
Frustrates you.
Oh, that's interesting. I think I don't know what irritates. I don't know actually.
No.
Well, one personality that amazes me, but I guess it just amazed, like, you like to talk, and you can
Yeah.
talk for hours. You can talk with, I often feel that I have a quota of words, how
Uh-huh.
how much I can talk in a day. If I use it up, at the end of the day, I'm just kind of, I just look at you and stare at you because I don't have anything else to say, or it's finished. But we haven't found that limit for you.
but I interestingly, at least this is what I think of myself. I don't have a problem not meeting people for a while. I think I've said this to you before, and you don't agree with me. I won't leave the house for a week. Well, I mean, it's COVID, but even before COVID, I wouldn't leave the house for a week, and I would feel just okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So that in and of itself is already a little bit of just being okay with being separate from the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, both books were written, I guess both books are written in bed next to you, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people don't, if I say to someone, I wrote 2 books on my iPhone in bed, they can't quite grasp what that means. How was it to be next to me as I would be writing these things?
Honestly, I was thinking, Andy, do you get enough sleep?
Yeah. Because I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and write. That was kind of how it worked.
Well, as long as you slept well before.
The one thing I can say is we got bifocals last week, and I think that's probably because of
multifocal.
It's called multifocal. Thank you.
So when Andy moves his head around like that, it's not that he's being.
I thought that was a funny moment when the optometrist said, "Do you need a bifocal or a multifocal?" And I said, "I don't need a multifocal. My eyes aren't that bad yet." Yeah, not realizing that it was just a better bifocal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. But you didn't. I mean, we've in the show. There's always Bambos and I will play a lot of jokes, of course, because you don't necessarily like to do the trainings that I'm offering, right? Or read the books.
It's a bit cheating, no?
What's that? What's cheating? Because you feel like you get it anyways?
Yeah, I get it for free for years. What do you think I'm with you? It's a free personal training, and I just observe you. That's the best way to learn.
Oh yeah, it's true. It's how I learned from Case. So I agree with that. What about reading? When would you consider reading, say, The Wounded Healer? When would you consider reading that book?
I think I read it. It was read to me.
It was read to you
every morning.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite of the 2? Do you like The Last Letter of the Wounded Healer more? Is there one that you have an affinity for or not?
In between those 2 books?
Between those 2 books, yeah. Yeah, I know you haven't read them, but you've heard me read parts of them.
Yeah, I think that The Last Letter was it touched me more emotionally because it was your personal story. It was how you grew up, about your childhood, and I guess that's also part of me that loves you unconditionally, because I could only imagine you being the youngest child and losing someone when you're that young, and exactly on the age where you need your motherly love. And
you often see me as that, like the feeling, that helplessness of when I lost my mom.
Yeah, I'm very close to my mom myself, and I cannot imagine how it would feel, if I would lose her. I think so. I'm projecting it onto you, and I thought, wow, poor boy.
Yeah. So, can I read our chapter to you?
Okay.
Okay. This is from the last letter. This is the chapter that. So it's called Learning to Love and Accept Unconditionally. One of the challenges Rani and I had to overcome early in our relationship was that what I would call the "if you would only change" period. I was deep into meaningful relations trainings and deepening my own awareness. Rani, on the other hand, was less focused on her emotional development. She loved listening to TED Talks, but I often saw it as an exercise to validate ideas she already had of the world. How do you feel to be judged like that?
Confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias.
Even I am prone to it.
I was looking inward and seeing a world of wonder that felt never ending. I would often ask Rani to join trainings Case and I gave on the weekends. She would respond, "It's not how I want to spend my weekend. It doesn't interest me." I thought she would come around in time, yet that time never came. I began feeling tension inside as I observed issues developing in her life that could be resolved with some simple personal development work, but she was still not interested. After a few years, I began to develop judgment towards her lack of determination to resolve these issues. That must have been a real irritant. It was a pattern I recognized in myself from the past. I saw it in the relationships with my father to me. When I cared about someone, I would get angry at that person for not doing what I felt was best for him or her.
Mm.
Yeah. You remember those
Isn't
years.
it?
I remember
Yeah.
those years.
Yeah.
This all came to a head on one Saturday. Rani shared her frustration that she was being pushed into something she didn't want. I shared my frustration that she didn't try to deal with the emotional issues that had been impacting her for so many years. The conversation slowly moved from what our frustrations with one another were to the things that made us frustrated to begin with. I shared that I felt we were growing apart. The further I went in my path of development, the more I felt we were moving apart. She shared that although she was happy with my development, it was not her path. She just wanted to be accepted for who she was and not be told everything she could be doing better.
Mm.
Do you remember those
Yeah.
times?
Yeah. Yeah.
I ended up breaking through. Yeah.
Now this, this. Sorry to
No,
force
go
it,
ahead.
but I know one of your favorite songs was from Coldplay that says "Fix You,"
Mhm.
and I told you that I always had that song always triggered me because I thought that's a man's way of looking at women or their relationship as if the other person needs to be fixed. I
Yeah.
guess in our earlier part of the relationship, I never felt that I needed to be fixed.
Yeah.
I was imperfect, but I was happy with that. It was, if I were being very, mean to you, I would say, well, this is how I am. I'm happy with how I am. If you don't like it, your move.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy with you. I never, so. But at the same token, it was also a realization that, okay, well, if it doesn't kill me and it makes him happy, then why not?
Yeah, but that wasn't the relation. That's codependency. I want to sing this song. Time will guide you home. I ended up breaking through this moment with the simple act of acceptance. I realized if I cannot love you for everything you were without needing you to be something else, then I cannot be with you. I need to love you for who you are and not what I want you to be.
Mm.
I remember that time. That was really an important shift for me in our relationship.
Yeah.
In my life, not only
Yeah.
for you, but for with my
that is also interesting because now it crossed my mind that during my first marriage,
mm-hmm.
I also had these expectations. I wanted my husband then also to do or to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Because I wanted something from him. And in our relationship, I was more liberated in a sense that I feel that I am self-sufficient, even
Mm-hmm.
emotionally.
Yeah. That's probably one of those things to a healthy relationship that we didn't discuss. You really are. I've felt that we are, they often say two trees, they grow together and they're connecting at the branches and not at the roots. That's always how I felt us together.
Yeah, and that was actually also because of your influence. You made me read Ayn Rand's book.
Did I really?
Yeah, and
how did Ayn Rand's book impact you?
The fact that one self-sufficiency, even emotionally, you don't need someone else's approval to feel that you're doing something good.
Wow.
You can rely on yourself.
Ayn Rand had that impact on you.
Yes.
That's nice.
She's quite
I'm waiting
impactful.
for, by the way, these are one of the topics that if Bolalang is still watching and listening, I'm imagining he has things to say or write about that. I'm
Yeah.
really curious what he has to say. So with my simple act of acceptance, our lives changed. I was no longer agitated when I saw Ronnie suffering. In fact, I began to find it amusing. I realized that she apparently needed to suffer for some time before deciding to take action. For years, although I was trying to help, I had been getting in the way. I'm certainly not happy that she suffers, but I see that it's not my journey.
Yeah, getting in the way of my own learning.
Yeah.
Because when I learn in my own pace,
Yeah.
the effect is more sustainable. It's longer because
course.
it's something that I went through.
Yeah. And not because you were forced or imposed upon.
Yeah, and not because someone tells me that you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to think this way, you have to think that way.
It's not my problem to solve, and to love without expectation is something magical. It's a pure love that warms you up. It's not dependent on the other. It just says, I'm here for you when you need me. I love you for everything you are, and whatever I think may be better is just my issue. Since then, our relationship has grown stronger and stronger. A few years ago, I found, I'm going to cry if I read this. I found her rummaging through her jewelry, as she often does, like a collector admiring her years of accumulation. Each piece holds memories for her. This time was one piece caught my eye, my mother's wedding ring. It was the only thing I owned that belonged to my mom. After her death, I picked it out from the remaining pieces my brother and I still had to distribute between us. A sadness came over me. Tears welled up in my eyes after so many years of running away from my mom's death. It was as if it all made sense. Here was a woman I loved as much as my mom, and she was holding the one thing from my mom that meant anything to me. My father had given me her that ring over 60 years ago. It symbolized the love of the two who created me, which I never cherished because I only got to experience their breakup. As Rani sat there holding the ring, I understood how beautiful it was and how beautiful my life was. I did not tell Rani then, but it was that moment I decided to ask her to marry me. For many, this would seem like a normal progression, but for me, it was something extraordinary. I viewed marriage as an arbitrary union that gave the government more control over my life. My friends
you were even more anti-marriage than I did.
For sure. My friends often laughed at me as I would say, I pay taxes and the government already has enough control over me. As soon as I marry, I give them the right to dictate even more. In this moment, I decided that my mother's ring would adorn the one person who came to symbolize that love now. I saw beauty in that sadness, and I can't give words to. It was pure love. I spent the next weeks waiting for the moment which had been set in motion 10 years earlier. It came when we took off a long weekend in London. It had been 10 years to the day since we first met. We spent some time sightseeing in London, where we walked 25,000 steps, as noted by Rani, who's very precise in such matters. We sat at a bed and breakfast in Olympia District. I asked her to join me on a large sofa. She sat across from me with her feet draped over my legs. I had hidden the ring under a pillow, which she moved as she came to sit. I held the pillow down firmly, so not to give away the surprise. I said, Rani, it's been exactly 10 years since we met. She smiled and laughed, said, yes, I know. I leaned over and said, I want to ask you something. She was intrigued, but clearly not expecting anything out of the ordinary. Then I asked, Rani, will you marry me? Her eyes shot open as if she had taken a bite out of a lemon. She said, no, you're kidding. I said, no, I'm not.
I think I probably even pushed you like,
I think
no.
You did push me. Yes, of course you did. No, I'm not. I pulled the ring out from under the pillow where she was resting her leg. I said again, will you marry me? Her face turned soft and she began to cry. She said yes. A few months later, and about 3 months before our marriage, Rani came home and told me she had enough of working in the Netherlands. She wanted to swim in a bigger pond, London. Although I had many reasons to stay in Amsterdam for my work, I saw this was her time to spread her wings and fly. Neither of us wanted to limit the dreams of the other. So when she asked me if we could move, I took a deep breath and said, of course. Then I thought of 100 things I would need to change in my life to make it work. I also knew it wasn't going to work, but I wasn't going to let that stop you from doing it.
Thank you for letting me learn, Andy.
I mean, we, I think another thing when we talk about relationships, in a weird way, there's a selflessness to it because sometimes it's not what you want, and yet you have to make space for the other.
Yeah.
And I see that there's an egocentricity that people often bring to relationships where they make it about them.
Yeah.
And I just see when you're together, there's an what I need to make my life meaningful, but then there's another aspect, which is what I also want to be supportive of in the other. And if those two aren't balanced, I think the relationships go off filter. This ebb and flow of love and support has changed my life. It's a type of love that is difficult to give words to. Simply saying I love you feels so limiting. The love I share with Ronnie is the type of love that feels like life has purpose. Because I don't have children, I am often told there are things you'll never understand without having kids. I feel the same about my relationship with and love for Ronnie. There are things you'll never understand until you have loved someone so unconditionally that it gives life new meaning. It was in this love that I rediscovered the loss of my mom. It had been 29 years since she died, and I felt a complex mix of emotions. It was as if the sadness had become stale. It was not processed, but it felt so far away that bringing up the emotions did not feel genuine. It was as if I was watching a movie instead of experiencing my own life. With the memory of my mother's love became present. With this love, sorry. I remember discovering how it felt to be loved unconditionally, to be supported without reserve, to want to give to the other just to feel the joy in it. In this love and support, I was once again able to allow the well of sadness to flow that had never been released from my mom's death. My grieving came to a head in a session with a core energetics practitioner who helped me heal and transform. Joanne Lavasio, during the session, I lay on the floor and she placed her hands on different parts of my body, asking me to speak and make noise. I followed along, but I felt myself distracted by her instructions. I asked her if I could say the things that were hardest for me to say. She said, yes, please, as if welcoming the opportunity to make her life easier. While lying there on the floor as she held me, I said, why don't you see me? Can't you see I'm suffering? Help me. All of the feelings from my 18-year-old self came gushing out. I was deeply connected to the wounds that had built up so much scar tissue that it felt almost impossible to massage it out. I cried and cried. As I spoke, I saw the pain was held in my throat, just as it had been every prior emotional experience that was too much for me to bear. At one point, it was so tight that I could barely utter a word. There were faint noises coming through the breath. Finally, I experienced a release of epic proportions. I embraced emotions that I had withheld for 30 years. It was magic. Everything was shut down, was now opening. I was not rationalizing the pain. I was feeling it. It was incredibly hard, but indescribably beautiful. After the session, I felt alive. I sensed a deep connection to myself and the world around me. It was as if the pain was no longer a memory, but rather an old friend who was making a visit. To reduce this experience down to a single person or action would be too simple. This was the accumulation of everyone who had come into my life. Each person had taught me a lesson. Each person had given me tools to escape the emotional prison where I was held hostage. I'm indebted to all those people I've known and all those yet to come. The opportunity to allow others to influence you and to influence others yourself is a wondrous dance through life. The music changes and each partner has its own moves to learn. I have been lucky to have danced and I continue to dance. There are always new steps to learn. I'm lucky because I now have a partner with whom I can dance for the rest of my life. Ronnie and I married on June 11, 2017. We chose the date because we both share it as our birthday. We wanted to surprise our friends, so we invited everybody to a birthday party for the two of us. Ronnie was turning 40 and I was turning 47. In order to keep the appearance that it was an extra special party, we told everyone the theme was 87 Shades of Red, adding up both of our birthdays. They had no idea they were actually showing up to a wedding. We celebrated and danced, symbolic of the meaningful moments we shared. I understood that life needed to be celebrated. I could plan a party. Loss, on the other hand, was something that was always showed up uninvited through the years, and there was more of it yet to come.
Beautiful, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a great party.
It was a great
I
party.
think that's also one thing that we have in common.
What's that?
We like to prank people.
I don't think you like to prank me anymore because I always escalate it further than you want me to escalate it.
Well, the game is still on, honey.
Ronnie and I we scare one another when we walk through the door. But one time I scared you so much that I scared myself. I yelled so loud. I didn't even know I had that in me. I jumped back.
Yeah. There was actually, I don't know if you remember, but I did that already even early in our relationship. And because there was one of this, how do you call it? A picture, a mental picture that I will carry forever because somehow it was tattooed in my brain. It was in our old apartment.
Yeah.
I was in your apartment and I don't know where you were, but I was hiding behind the door and you came in and I said, boo. It was not very violent, boo. And you look at me and you smile, as if it was a nice surprise. And it was such a pure expression of joy or because I felt, wow, he's really happy to see me. And yeah, that was a beautiful feeling that that you could create such just a millisecond of just pure untainted happiness in someone, and you can see it in their face. You
can't deny that.
Yeah, yes, there's whatever you do, you're gonna, whatever bad thing that you might do to me in the future, that one moment was real and very yeah.
I think that's where, and I have often said we're always one day away from a divorce. And because I've always associated with avoidance of any issue when it comes up leads to resentment. And the more resentment, the more you then are going to get a divorce, but it's going to happen in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I've never wanted to leave anything unspoken. So with you, when I go to sleep, there's never a thing that I'm going to sleep with where I have a unresolved of what you haven't or what you should or any of that. But actually,
I sometimes I go to bed with still unresolved things, but it's always related to work.
Of course it is. Yeah, beautiful. We're actually at 58 minutes, babe. We actually have 2 more minutes left. So if there's any parting words or things you would like to share or talk about, then please, you have the microphone.
Yeah, so whoever has been listening, I'm actually, amazed and grateful that you have the patience to listen to our conversation.
Yeah.
It's, in a way, it's private conversation. I mean, this is the kind of conversation that we have. And because I don't see any of you, so it feels private. So I just say things.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully it didn't disappoint since you're expecting to see a wonderful chaos. I hope it's wonderful. Chaos
Baby,
or not.
the fact that you weren't supposed to be here 5 minutes before we began and then the guest didn't show, it was pretty damn wonderful as far as I'm concerned.
I do have to share one thing that I didn't expect. Someone from my Facebook actually commented, and Petal. So he is someone I knew for a long time, and you would be surprised that we actually never met in real life, but he was like my big brother.
Really?
Yeah.
You never met in life, but he was like your big brother.
Yes, we were pen pal.
Oh wow! When you were in,
and I was in Indonesia, so that must
beautiful.
have been I don't know what.
And
almost 30 years ago.
Almost 30 years ago. That's beautiful. I don't remember many of my pen pals, but then again, I think all my pen pals I still have such close contact with. I don't even think of them as pen pals anymore.
Yeah, the same actually with Capital.
Bola Long says, no, don't part. No parting words. Stay together until
we see you again, Bulalang.
I was going to say, parting is such sweet sorrow, Bola Long. Thank you. I apologize for not having the guest that one might have expected to have, Tasha Stevens, foraging for a living. But I can tell you, I had a weird sneaking suspicion that she spends so much time away from the computer. I could easily have imagined that she wouldn't have showed up.
Yeah.
So it was to be anticipated. I can always see if I can get her back for another show, of course. And next time I'll be a little bit more diligent about making sure she shows up. And that's it. That was it, babe. We came to the end of our hour.
Yeah, well, thank
You survived it.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for everyone who's listening.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. And then what do we say when we end our show, babe? We look forward to seeing you the next time on A Wonderful Chaos. Thank you.